Yeah, hi friends, Doc South here, and I don't know. I was riding through Chester, New Jersey today, where many years ago I grew up. Some will say, Doc, I don't think you've grown up yet. Well, that might be, but I'm a whole lot older than I was back in the day. I think my folks moved to Chester around 1956. I was 10. Yeah. And there was one thing we got into. Uh, we noticed that on the property there was a chicken coop. Yep, chicken coop. And not a big one, but about the size of a one car garage. Not maybe a little bigger than that. And I think whoever used it, who had the house before us, pretty much used the building for holding, lawn mowers and rakes and various things for for working on the yard and like that. But my father looked at that and said, he said something I've always wanted to do. I remember he announced at the table, I'm going to take that coop and I think I'm going to raise chickens. Okay, well, for a while that worked out pretty good. We had uh, we had chickens, hens, a rooster or two, and there was quite a few eggs, to the point where there was quite a lot of eggs after a while, and that was nice. But then I don't know quite how it happened, but my father heard about raising pigeons. Yeah, racing pigeons. Not just a plain old pigeon like you see out in the park, loafing around and bothering people. This was a these these were pigeons that were athletes, pigeons that you could take 100 miles from the coop, let them go, they beat you home. Yeah, that kind of pigeon, and really powerful little birds. I mean, if one swatted you, you'd go, oh, jeez. Well, they hit you with their wing. They kind of, if you get a little too close, they go like that. You don't even see it coming. Bang! Oh, God! And especially if they're on a nest, taking care of their babies in the nest. Yeah, it was rough. So anyway, my father he gets some pigeons. He joins up with a pigeon racing club. hmm hmm And next thing you know, well, he gets the males and the females. They all get together and have a big uh, pigeon party, shall we say? And next thing you know, they got eggs in the nest that are waiting to hatch. The I believe the mother pigeon sat in them. Sat on the nest to keep the eggs warm. I think she would sit over at the night at nighttime. I could be wrong, but I think that's the case. And the male bird uh, would sit during the day so that the female could get something to eat and all that. And it took X amount of days. I forget just how many, but something like about 3 weeks, maybe four, no more than that, for the eggs to hatch. The eggs were about a little bit bigger than roughly the size of a golf ball. Not not wide like a golf ball, but about that kind of mass. And they be two eggs to a nest, and the eggs would be watched. Pardon the pun, like a hawk. Uh, in fact, like a pigeon. They'd be very careful as to who got near that nest. I know you get near the nest to maybe see if the eggs have hatched, and whoever was on the nest, mom or dad or both, would swat you one with their wing. They just they'd be sitting there. They kind of look at you funny and give you the side eye, which is the eye that they kind of saw. They saw forward, but they also saw a bit to the side, and they'd see you coming, and next thing you know, be like that. You didn't even see it coming. You sure felt it though when they got you with that wing of theirs. Very powerful wing. They're actually a good, healthy racing pigeon. Very tough bird. And but what you would do is when the babies were old enough, after they hatched, you'd put a little band on their foot. You could do it at that point because their feet were still a little bit small, and or rubbery, so that you could get the band, this little metal band about the size of a kernel of corn, onto their leg, and that showed them as being your bird. There were numbers on that band. And then as the birds got old enough, the baby birds got to where they could fly, then what you do is you'd get them, put them in a cage, like a nesting, not a nesting cage, but a travel cage, and you put maybe 10 of them in there, and get another cage, put another 10 in, and you'd take them out maybe 10 miles from the coop and let them go. And of course, that was greasy kid stuff for them. They'd be home before you were. And then next time, maybe you take them out 20 miles, and then 30, and then 40, and then maybe 50. Yeah. And again, in almost all cases, the best birds would be waiting for you, wondering what kept you. Uh, they'd be in the coop. And what they do, they'd fly pretty much straight, roughly 50 miles an hour, maybe a little more than that, with a tailwind, and they'd be on your coop waiting for you when you got home. And you had a thing on the coop that they could, if they wanted to go inside, most of them did they wanted to get a drink of water and see if you left them any food. And they'd go through this like gate that would let them in but wouldn't let them out. And they'd be in the coop looking at you like, what? We're trying to eat here. Where's the food? Yeah. And you'd lay out some corn and grain and stuff for them. They'd munch away on that. And eventually you got to where you could enter them into a race. They were banded. They've had their exercise. They're roughly slightly under maybe a 6 months to maybe a year, 9 months old, something like that. And they get put in a race. And what they would do, there'd be pigeon clubs. No, pigeon clubs. Pigeon fanciers who had clubs. Yeah, this was a human thing, but the pigeons came too. Because what you did was you put the pigeons in these special nests or boxes, crates, and loaded them on a truck. And you'd go when the truck got out to a certain point at a certain time of day, say 8 o'clock, 8:05 in the morning, 100 miles, roughly 100 miles average from all the different other coops that were going to be in the race, those birds would be let out all at once. They had a way of raising all the flaps on the cages, bang, all at once. By the way, hitting that button on the road would probably cause a wreck because there'd be all these pigeons flying at everyone behind you. So they park it in a spot where they can get airborne and get up above the tree level. They circle once or twice and then they're on their way home. And they say 100-mile race, they'd probably be home in an hour and a half, give or take. I might be off on that, but roughly an hour and a half. 90 miles, they can fly about 60 miles an hour more with that tailwind. And they'd fly into this box on the coop. It trapped them momentarily so that you, back at the coop, could get this rubber band off their feet without hurting them. And you put that into a capsule and then into a timed clock that when you put the capsule with the band into the clock, you hit a button on the clock, and that signifies that particular band arrived at, say, 11:43, and then there'd be computers waiting, or mathematicians waiting at the club, to see what birds had the fastest speed home, and they would Again, it wasn't who got there first because they were all different lengths of the race, but you could find out the speed of each individual bird, the overall speed that they flew at, and whoever flew the fastest, well, the owner got a nice trophy, and there was gambling on the. This would really sparked my father's interest because you could gamble on the pigeons, your particular pigeons, much like you would gamble on a racehorse at a track. It was a hobby. It was a hobby very much to my father's liking, and he'd get a good bird, bet a boatload on it, and every now and then he'd come home with a lot of money for pigeon feed. That's for sure. And it was. I think it was. I think back. He was always a pretty happy guy, but he was especially happy when he took some top honors in the pigeon race, the race of the day, and it was pretty cool. And he was always good to the pigeons. He didn't put them down if they were too slow. He figured they all stood a chance, so he'd send them back out again. The only thing he had to worry about was maybe along the way an eagle or a hawk might get a bird, or the birds might run into wires. Wires weren't so were kind of dangerous to him. I think pigeons kind of they're more looking to the side and a little to the front as they fly, so they can conceivably, especially at the speeds they're going, they can hit and actually in some cases get killed. It's I guess just like at Indianapolis, someone spinning out on the fourth turn could be tough. Or again, much like a race where an Indianapolis race where competitors crash and the race cars catch fire, well, the pigeons can crash and fall to the ground or get nailed by again birds of prey. It was a very it couldn't have been a better deal for my father than there just couldn't be a better deal for my father. That's the best way to put it. Plus, he was a fighter pilot. I think I may have mentioned that, but he kind of knew what the pigeons were going through. Oh yeah, he raced those fighter planes. I know, I'm sure he did. I can't imagine my father going out on a training mission without throwing a little money down as who could, at a certain point, who could get back to the airport first. Hmm. Oh, I'm sure of that. But in any case, it was a good hobby. You should look into it. There is pigeon racing stuff all over the web, and you'll find it. I think you'll find it, if nothing else, interesting. It may not be for you, but uh, it's a kind of a satisfying way to go. And I know my father, if he were alive, would highly recommend it to you and yours. Yep. And no, he never put a pigeon down. If one was really sick, yes, he would. But for the most part, if the bird was slow, he'd just take the bird out of the racing and let him be a bird, and they'd live in the coop and, you know, just do his thing, so to speak. Find a mate, have a few kids, that kind of thing. But they were fascinating and very, very strong for a bird. Anyway, I'll see you later. I thought you might like that. I don't know. I saw some pigeons on the way home today, and that got me to thinking I should perhaps give you the lowdown on what to think when you see a load of pigeons flying hell bent for leather uh, on a Saturday morning or a Sunday afternoon, because they definitely in a race. I'll see you later. Bye now, and God bless.